Welcome to the What I Meant to Say podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and I started these conversations because life doesn't give us do-overs. So this is a space where we get a chance to reflect and tell our story again, with more grace for ourselves, and hopefully make us all better for having listened. This week I was fortunate to catch up with Julia Scoles, two-time national champion and rising professional beach volleyball player. Julia's message about how her Christian faith has grown through her athletic journey and through her struggle after multiple concussions is one of great resilience. Come listen and find out not just how faith can lead you through difficult times, but help inspire a life of gratitude and freedom that lasts far beyond athletic achievement. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and that's just so encouraging to hear just how you're using your platform to help empower others. So I'm really thankful to be here and have a good conversation.
Yeah, well, coming off your second national championship, so I mean that's an awesome place to start, I guess. I can't even imagine. Like, I never reached these levels in sports, and to watch, I love watching just the flow. I read a couple of the articles, the one from Volleyball magazine in May, and you were recounting what it felt like to win that first one, when your coach was just brought you out of the moment, and so tell me a little bit about your experience at USC.
Yeah, my experience at USC has been nothing short of amazing. I felt welcomed to the Trojan family. They don't joke about that there. They truly embody what it means to be a family. I felt supported on the court. I felt supported off the court. My teammates have become like family to me. They've pushed me, they've grown me, they've challenged me, and I'm just so thankful for just my time there to build those relationships that they'll be my friends for the rest of my life, and that's something that's way more important than any national championship, any wins, any losses. It's about who you impact, who you relationally connect with, and just how you can grow together.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that article, you talked a lot about your relationship with your mom. And when you said, you had come from Hawaii, I'm kind of telling your story backwards, but when you'd come from Hawaii and said, like, I want to be able to call my mom after practice and not have it be at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah. So when I originally was deciding on schools, I was thinking, okay, if I go to the West Coast, it's still a really long plane ride. So what's another few hours on a plane? It's definitely the time zone. That's the difference for sure. And so, when I was at Hawaii, I just remember just being out of sync with people who are quote unquote on mainland. So it was hard to kind of connect in a practical way with each of our schedules.
Yeah. Well, another thing that struck me was in the Volleyball Mag article was you weren't just a volleyball player, which not that any of us are just volleyball players, but speaking of multiple sports, it said you scored over 1,000 points in basketball, and were a 2-time state champion in the high jump and the long jump. Yeah. And I was like, I'm reading that again. Like, that whole concept of being born an athlete is what struck me. I'm like, athletes are born. And I've watched you play, and I've seen it when you play, but what your body is capable of doing, what you like, it's so fun to watch, and it's amazing to see. And the way the world's going now, like we're teaching kids, like, kids are specializing so young. Mm-hmm. And I read that and I was like, see where you still can get if you're in your zone, if you're finding your purpose and your passion. And I was wondering, like, in that process, I mean, when you're gifted at all of those sports, like, how did you arrive? And it was at indoor volleyball first, but how did you arrive at indoor volleyball over the other sports?
Yeah, so growing up, I just love all sports. I did whatever I could, and I think it's important to touch on what you mentioned about specializing in a specific sport, and I think that's maybe where some parents go wrong nowadays, because I think it develops your muscular just your different muscle groups, and it helps with injury prevention, and just helps you become a well-rounded athlete. And so when I was growing up, like I said, I did every season I could and filled it with a sport. And I think that prevented me from burnout as well. So when I was getting tired of one sport, the next season for a different sport would start like in a few weeks. So it just really just invigorated my love for all of the sports that I did. And then when I was deciding on kind of what next step to take for college, I knew that I absolutely loved basketball games, but I wasn't the hugest fan of basketball practices. I didn't like running through different plays and just the structure of that. And just the shell kind of those basketball plays wasn't the most enjoyable for me. And then with volleyball, I love volleyball games, maybe a little less than basketball games, but I absolutely love volleyball practices. And, like, practice is how you're going to compete, and if you don't love your practice, you're not going to master or excel at your craft or find mastery. And so I kind of decided, and plus I was better at volleyball, so it definitely opened up more opportunities for me there. And then track was just, I never focused on track as a sport, but it just was offered at my high school, so I did it in the spring alongside like playing travel volleyball.
Yeah.
Stuff. But,
yeah, it takes me back because that was where I grew up. The first club volleyball team happened my senior year, and so I got to play 1 year of club volleyball, and nothing. It was like the first year I had my driver's license, and I'd get out of the pool, get out of swim practice, and it wasn't on my parents. I could go change, get in the car, and drive over to volleyball practice.
That's awesome.
And I was like, this is so fun.
Exactly.
And I never had that. I had never had that experience before. And I remember it being like the time that I felt the most invigorated, the most empowered, like so amazing.
Yeah, I would leave track practice early to go to volleyball practice.
Yeah, and it's true. And then it becomes a lifestyle. And I'll say that like at 47, it really, it stays with you, and it like you learn so much about how to treat your body and take care of it and all of that kind of stuff. And that's what I love about sports and having that lifelong. And I do think that playing, like you said, playing multiple sports and mixing it up is the way to go. And we're, I think, missing that boat a lot with our kids right now. And even the same concept of like giving a ton of lessons, right? Like, do you have a thought, and this is kind of off the cuff, but like breaking like having lessons for a certain sport that you're playing, do you see a role for that? Or do you feel like, you practice, you compete, and if you have a young kid that, once you've gone to all these practices and then you're doing lessons on top of that and then you're competing.
It's private lessons.
Yeah.
I remember that I was really intentional with my club coach, and I would ask him to come in early or on days that we didn't necessarily have practice, and so I could work on specific things that I was weak on. And I think in college you're obviously playing every single day, besides like the weekends, and then competing and lifting on top of that as well. But with club volleyball, I think it's like 2 or 3 times a week, so I think it opens up some more time for you, to play other sports, but also to kind of get those extra reps in, find your deficiencies, and capitalize on the opportunity you have with whatever resource of coach, court, parent accessibility to bring you these practices is.
Yeah. So when you left high school, you decided to go play at UNC, right?
Yes.
Indoor volleyball.
Indoor volleyball, yes.
And that is where your first concussions happened?
Yes. So I committed to Carolina at a pretty early age. And after watching Misty and Carrie compete in the Olympics, I always had a dream of playing beach volleyball, but from where I am, the opportunities are minimal and no one plays beach volleyball. And so I just thought in my mind, oh, beach volleyball and indoor volleyball aren't that different. Like, I'll go play indoor and then try to switch to beach after college, having never played, but just having that desire to do so. And so, yeah, I went to Carolina my first year. During my freshman season, I got my first concussion, we were doing this coach on one drill, and my coach lightly tossed the ball to a corner, and I could have easily ran there on my feet, but instead I turned myself towards the ball, launched my body in its direction. I was parallel to the ground, probably like 4 feet. My face smashed, and then my feet kind of went over my head, but the smash caused it to bounce up and then back again, and it hit my teeth, my nose, and my forehead, and I kind of blacked out. And then I woke up, and my teammates were surrounding me, and there was blood like streaming down my nose. And then my trainer was trying to get me off the court, and I would remember like streaming in and out of consciousness. And when they'd lift me up, I'd start to pass out. And then after they got me out the court, they brought a wheelchair, put me in the wheelchair, and it felt like they were spinning me in the wheelchair like as fast as they possibly could. The white light was like piercing. My eardrums felt like they were gonna rupture. I was like dry heaving, convulsing, throwing up. Wasn't throwing up at the time, but I had the kind of sensation of that. And it was just like the most excruciating pain I'd ever been through in those 30 minutes. And then the pain kind of like went away afterwards. And then I went to the doctors to kind of obviously assess the injury. But when I was in that, I was like, I have to be dying right now. Like, this is the worst pain I've ever experienced. So yeah,
and then
that was my first one.
So how long? Then you went to the doctor.
I went to the doctor
that
day. Like once my symptoms kind of came down a little, like they brought me to a dark room. Then they carted me to like not the ER, but our team physician, which was like right across the street from where we were practicing, because UNC is like medical places right over there. And then we told them, and they were like, yeah, you definitely have a concussion. So I had never heard of concussions in terms of like knowing people that were experiencing them in a bad way. So I remember in high school girls having concussions, and they would be out for like a day or two but not show any symptoms that were visible or seem to act that different. So I thought that they weren't that big of a deal. And so he told me I had a concussion, and then I went through concussion protocol. My symptoms were like kind of annoying but not painful after the first initial impact. And so they would progressively get better like each day. And then once you're asymptomatic, you begin the return to play protocol, which is where you like bike, you do some physical activity, you do something mental, I believe. I mean, you take your concussion test, and then if you clear those, then you like start reintroducing practice and in a half capacity kind of way until you are fully cleared. And it's about a 2-week, I would say, process of experiencing the symptoms the first 7 days and then 7 days of return to play. So after I was cleared, I remember like being like, wow, that was way less intense than I anticipated. I thought I was going to be out for way longer. Like concussions don't seem like that big a deal. It's better than having a bad ankle sprain, which I would be out for a month for.
Right.
So that was my mindset on concussions from that point on. So
when you came back after that first one, you pretty much felt fine.
Yeah, I remember feeling pressure in my head the first game that I was back. And I also think there were probably underlying things that I wasn't aware of that stemmed from the concussion.
Do you know now what some of those underlying things are?
At the time, no.
But
like
now,
I just was probably like, oh, I feel like a little off or not like myself, but I just attributed that to circumstances, kind of
stress, pressure.
Exactly.
So what would you say to somebody now if they were coming back on the court? Like, what were some of those things that you felt that maybe they should go, oh, wait, I might still be impacted?
I honestly still don't know fully because it is a case-by-case scenario.
Okay.
And usually people come back from their first concussion pretty quickly, but concussions compound, and then if you get a second one, that's when it begins to be really potentially severe, but some people it's fine as well.
Yeah, and that is the thing about concussions.
Yeah.
I've watched in the football world even, like some heads, I mean, you don't ever want people taking that impact, but some people can take it. in different
Yeah.
ways where it's like it doesn't seem. I mean, I haven't seen
I mean,
scans
that's
or whatever.
another discussion too, because CTE is chronic traumatic encephalopathy,
Yes.
and it's repetitive hits to your head that
And gives
cause the neurodegenerative disease that happens later in life, even if you
Yes.
don't get concussions from the onset of the impact.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take a break in action because your headset's hooked up to this when mine is usually. I just want to make sure the sound is okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because.
Sure.
Yeah, because the most important thing, like my sound's good here, you're here, but this is what's recording. So sorry for the interruption, but
It's okay.
before we go any further into this
Okay.
fantastic fucking
Yeah.
story, we want to make sure your boy got it right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Are we good?
Glad this is an edit.
Oh.
It gave me. Yeah, this is like
Yeah.
is something like we can.
Oh yeah,
edit.
Lee'll just cut it out.
Yeah.
But are we?
Because I'm like, are we live?
No.
Yeah.
Are we? Can you
Let
tell?
me just borrow. Can I borrow yours and I'll give them back?
Yeah.
Because I had a podcast with John Mayer, and I had some nasty feedback. Huh. Yeah. Her sound's not working at all. All right. Well, the cool thing is, you're fine.
Can Lee bring it up? I mean, she's got the
Yeah.
microphone, and Lee can adjust sound like crazy. So
Can you say something?
Hello.
Your sound is awesome. Your ability to hear is
so you're probably better off with
is-
headphones on.
Yeah.
I can.
I
dig-
thought I could hear it well.
Okay. No, you're
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Because here's what you're supposed to sound like. Put mine on for a second. And you're gonna be like, this is blowing my fucking mind.
Okay. Well, yeah. I kind of like this because then
That's a
it's
lot.
not as
Yeah.
distracting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, for me, there's no one. that
So
wants to
before
hear the
we
sound
go
of his own
down-
voice more than me, so that's my reasoning behind
Okay.
that.
Since we're gonna edit all this out, before we
Wendy.
go down the CTE route, that's part of my story. My ex, I won't do all that here, but he is a football player, and there is a lot. There's the frontal lobe damage, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
he has CTE, but he had an FMR. I gave him a 6 out of 10 frontal lobe damage, and it pissed him off. And I've seen the post 40 story. Like if I could tell you the breakup in marriages post 40, the painkiller alcohol that kicks in, the depression, it's so real.
Yeah.
And that's for another day.
Yeah.
And Lee knows my story, but it's gnarly. And so it's part of what draws me to this story. And I'm not going to do all that here, but it's
Yeah, I would love to hear about that.
and
sometime.
it's real. And that's so
Also, it's at some point, since you seem to be an authority on the CTE thing because you learned about it because you experienced it, maybe at some point talk about frontal lobe.
Yeah, we can touch on
how
it.
it goes, how it pertains to mediating impulses.
Yeah.
Like if that happened to you as a child.
Yeah,
you're an
there is-
adult, you're driving, you're like, I could kill this guy, but you don't. That
Yeah.
part of your brain navigates whether you decide to kill that guy or just chill.
yeah, the emotional
So,
regulation thing is
Of course, I defer to you. Look, when you experience it, you become more an authority than the people who, recommend
I
it.
just
So-
watched a documentary on CTE.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
down the road.
But that's how do you think we learn,
So-
right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
right,
So
go ahead.
okay, so
We're ready.
we're good. Okay. So post that first concussion and coming back, playing the game, I know then you had multiple concussions after that. So when did that second one happen?
Yeah, so I played my freshman spring, and then over the summer I did some USA stuff, and I really felt like I was on top of I feel like I reached my peak at the time of indoor, and so I just was feeling really confident going into the season, and I was really excited for the year ahead. And then at an open gym, I went to hit a ball, and at the last second, the middle blocker's hand pressed over, and I hit the ball into the block. It bounced back, hit me in the face, and then my neck kind of snapped back on my way down. And then the ball went back over the net, and we got a point out of it. But so I landed, and I was pretty dazed, and I felt just a little shaken up. But in my mind, I was like, well, I've had a really bad head impact before, so this was nothing compared to that. I'm fine. And so I played the rest of practice, didn't feel great, but didn't feel terrible. So I thought it was just like I said, just a little shaken up, I would be fine. I told my trainer after practice, and she said, okay, just take some ibuprofen to help with the headache, and then monitor how you're feeling within the next 24 hours. So the next day I felt a lot more tired than usual, and so I took like a 4 or 5 hour long nap, and I'm not a napper. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just exhausted from the week, whatnot. And then the next morning, so this is like 48 hours after the impact, I woke up and I was like projectile vomiting, and super light sensitive, noise sensitive, just felt really out of it and weak. And I was like, something is definitely wrong. So I texted my trainer, and she thought it could be a potential indication of a brain bleed because of the sudden increase in symptoms. It could have shown something was getting worse. So she came over, brought me to the ER, and then I got a CT scan, and thankfully, like, my brain was completely intact in terms of there was no bleed, but they were just kind of monitored me and said, yeah, you do have another concussion. And in my mind, I was like, okay, this is not the worst news. Like, it takes 2 weeks to come back from, like, we're a month out of preseason, or maybe like a month and a half out from preseason. I'll be good. And so I went home, and the symptoms were kind of, after like 3 days of pretty intense symptoms, it got a lot more manageable and bearable. And so I was not I continue to have symptoms though past the time that I should be asymptomatic, so from my first one. And so they're like, okay, another week came and went. I was still symptomatic. And then the following week came and went, and I was starting to get pretty frustrated. I'm like, I'm supposed to be better by now. Why is this not taking a while? My trainers are trying to be encouraging and not tell me about post-concussion syndrome. And they said that it should clear up soon, but there is a possibility to have prolonged symptoms, and that would indicate post-concussion syndrome. So I was like, okay, I'm frustrated because I feel okay physically, but I'm still not able to compete because of the concussion stuff. Mm-hmm. So my stupid self knew that we had preseason. Our out of conference is pretty important in indoor because you want to build up your RPI, or I'm trying to remember what the thing is, but your points for going into postseason tournament after season. And we were playing Wisconsin, Minnesota, in Minnesota. And so that was a really big weekend for us. So I was determined to play in that opening tournament. And so I kind of fibbed my way through concussion protocol, saying I was feeling fine when I was feeling okay, but definitely still symptomatic. And so I got cleared. Literally, the first full practice I did was our the day before pregame, like, run, serve and pass type practice in Minnesota. And so I played. I remember having a pretty bad headache before the game, and so I took quite a few ibuprofen. And then during the game, there was no substantial hard hits, but there was like ricochet type hits to my head. So like I blocked a ball, it bounced off, hit me in the head. One of my teammates passed a ball, or like dug the ball, and it came off and hit me in the head. And so after that game, I was like, I don't feel the best. Maybe I'm just exhausted. And then that Monday is kind of when everything came to a head. And that was the start of school. And I realized that my eyes could not track more than, like, I could read a sentence, but if there was a paragraph, my eyes couldn't just follow along. And I was like, something's definitely wrong here. And I knew then that it would be a really long, arduous recovery process. And I kind of came to the terms with, I'm not going to come back this season, and I just need to focus on recovery. And so that Thursday, our team was supposed to leave for Puerto Rico, and I really wanted to go because it was an exciting trip. And so I was talking with my doctor, and she was like, no, it wouldn't be wise to go because of the pressure of the plane, increase your head pressure and whatnot. But then that Thursday night was probably one of the scariest nights of my life. My sodium levels dropped to 119, but I didn't really know what what was happening at the time. They didn't know. But anyways, I was projectile vomiting again. And so I started feeling just terrible. And so I got rushed to the ER. They were doing a bunch of tests. I was just like almost like shaking and throwing up. And they were just running a lot of different tests. And then they finally found out it was my sodium levels. So then they gave me saline and monitored my intake and kept me there overnight. And they never said, oh, this is a direct result of your concussion, but concussions have been proven to affect your pituitary gland, which regulates your sodium levels. And so, I mean, it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out that those two things could be connected. So that was like something that was super scary. And then...
Were you on your own when that happened, or are your parents close? Like, because you're how old were you? You're 20, not even like, 20 at that time?
I think I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah. My friend actually brought me to the ER, who was close by. So I was so thankful.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, I don't know, honestly, don't know what would have happened if someone wasn't there to bring me, because I was like not able to, like, they had to like almost carry me to the hospital. Yeah. And then my parents came up right after I was admitted. And my teammates, my coaches were there, even though they had to leave at 3 a.m. the next morning to go to Puerto Rico. And so I just felt like, the people around me were awesome for sure at the time.
But at the same time, everything you want to do is being pulled away from you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah, so this is what set me on my quest of faith.
Okay, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before that, I mean, were these struggles are what brought you to your faith, or were you raised
I was raised in the Bible Belt, which is the South, and I was exposed to the gospel at an early age. I went to church every Sunday. I think faith in the South is more of just something that's culturally like accepted, instead of having ownership of your faith.
Almost like a habit.
Oh, yeah, almost like a habit, a box that you check, like, yes, I'm a Christian, just like, yes, I'm a volleyball player, yes, whatever. But now I realize that, like, you have to either be all in or not in at all. You can't have one foot in faith and then one foot in the world. Like, the Bible states that, like, you can't have, like I said, you can't have one hand on the plow, but looking back on the world. And so, yeah, during that time, I was, like, I would say, like, I made my sport an idol. I made other elements of my life my God, per se. And so when everything was stripped away from me, like, I had to medically underload in my school. I couldn't go to practices. I was in physical, mental, debilitating pain. I just was like, okay, if everything's stripped away, and then I couldn't even recognize my own personality, like, because
concussions come with depression.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just didn't recognize, I was a shell of the person I once was. I was like, okay, like, if everything is stripped away in your life, what is there? And it kind of caused me to seek out, and God says that, like, if you seek him with all your heart, like, you will find him. And so I think at that time I was just in complete desperation, like, crying out to God, like, if you're real, like, show yourself, like, I need to know, like, that this is not just, like, I guess, on purpose suffering, because in Romans 8:28 it says God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purposes. And so I hadn't made the decision to, like, fully surrender my life at that time, and I just really felt like I was gripping things in my life so tightly, and so when they were taken away, it was crushing and defeating. But that's not how God designed us to live. Like, he designed us for him to satisfy our deepest longings, deepest desires, and just be our source of joy and contentment. And so when we do place all of our hope and joy in other things, like, of course it's going to be crushing when they're stripped away, because you've made them your God. And so I was, just on this quest, I guess, just to, like, find out what is the meaning of life, and, like, why are these things happening. And that point really pushed me in that direction.
So when you're though, like obviously you've come such a long way in your faith, and at that point you were at this incredibly low, kind of almost point of desperation, right? Like what were the little things that help you build from that point to where you are today?
Yeah, I think at first I just tried to start reading the Bible and like obediently like take actionable steps in finding the truth instead of just passively like making a God up in my mind that I'm praying to who's not necessarily the God of the Bible, the one true God, Yahweh. And so I think that just reading his promises in scripture and then praying through them, talking to God and saying like, God, you say that you provide peace that surpasses understanding. And in those dark, dark moments, like I felt peace that I was inexpressible. So I was like, okay, like I feel this, I know this. And I just felt like God kind of leading me in that really dark season. But I didn't know where he was leading me. I just was like trusting and kind of following in step with him. And honestly, my testimony of this is a part of my testimony, but I wouldn't say that I fully surrendered until my second year in Hawaii.
Okay.
And that's when like, I guess I began just like, okay, God, you're my life, not all that's around me, and use me for you and your kingdom. And I know that wherever you have me is the best place to be. And I trust you that you're a good father, and that you'll provide. And that's what he's done exceedingly and abundantly. So
how did that season in your life lead you from North Carolina with your second concussion to making that decision to switch to beach and go to Hawaii?
Yeah, so over Christmas break, there was just a lot of transitional things in my life and like the people in my life, and I felt like I was supposed to leave. Like I felt I returned to the indoor court. I definitely was not fully recovered for sure. Like I don't think I was fully recovered until I was in like after my first year of Hawaii. And so I returned to the court and I just felt absolute fear. Like I never felt the same on the indoor court. And when I returned, I never played a full practice of 6-on-6 indoor volleyball again. And at that time I kind of explored different, I got connected with the beach volleyball club team. And so I remember playing a few practices with them and just feeling completely different. Like I felt free. I felt like this is a safer alternative. This element of sand slows the game down substantially. The ball is a little bigger and softer, and tactically the game is played completely differently. So instead of trying to power every single ball like indoor, you're placing it where the opponent's not. You're being a little more strategic, and yes, there's still a power element, but it's way less on the beach, I would say.
Yeah.
And so I also didn't realize still when I was playing with the beach team, like how different the sports were, because I was still playing like kind of an indoor game, but not understanding what I was doing. So I was like, okay, like this would allow me to continue college athletics, but in a safer way that I could pursue. And then ultimately I wanted to switch to beach after college anyway. So I was like, this is a cool opportunity to start from ground zero and kind of build this other sport. And so that's why I would say like I then use beach volleyball as like an idol or as the promised land of once I get over there, everything's going to be okay. And Hawaii is like the grass is always greener on the other side. And so I transferred and the grass was not greener on the other side. Like I felt isolated. I did not have as strong of a faith community when I was out there because AIA kind of took it for granted, was really prominent on our campus. And so I absolutely, like, I hated beach volleyball. Like, I was super bad at it. Like, it was just to go to practice was like such a mental battle. And I was like, why did I just switch my entire life for something that I hate? I'm literally half a world's away from my family. And I knew one person like coming to Hawaii. So I was like, this is just, I just felt really alone, and still I was like trying to, I guess, construct my life and figure out those areas without like surrendering everything to God and saying, God, like, have your way in my heart. Like, I just want to do your will for my life, and I want you to be my everything and not my sport to be my everything. And so the second year, I remember flying back to Hawaii, and I was in the middle flying, in the middle seat of the airplane, and I was just like streaming tears because I was like, I cannot live this year again. Like, it was really hard. And so I remember I was in my apartment room, and I was like, this cannot go the same way. And like, I always have claimed that faith has been a big part of my life, but it had never been everything. And in Matthew it says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So I was like, God, like, I'm going to seek you first. Like, I'm going to make that my top priority for this year. I don't care what else happens, but that's going to be my decision, because if you're who you say you are, then you're going to show up, right? And so I didn't trust that before that point. But this was honestly like a last resort of like, everything's falling. Oh.
Well, and you're giving me the chills for like the sixth time, but that concept of being an athlete and knowing, like, when we decide to do something, and not that other things don't have, but sports teaches you, like, when you've had that mindset for so long, like, this is what I'm going to do, and you decide to do it, it's real, no matter what you apply it to. And in that moment, like, that's what comes to me there. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this chat as much as I am. For more inspiring conversations, go to BeBetterWithWendyJones.com. It's like, so you put everything else aside and said, this is first. Mm-hmm. And then what happened?
Yeah. And so like, spiritual warfare is real for sure too. And I felt just like such a resistance towards reading the word. But then when I made that decision, I was like, just regardless of how I feel, I'm going to step out in obedience, and I'll read your word every single day. So I read the Bible every single day. I had my quiet time. Like, I prayed, and at first it felt like a chore, but then I felt God starting to change my heart, and it became a joy. It became a desire. And so when that year was unfolding, like, I could just see God's hand in so many different ways. And not that my circumstances had changed all that much, but I was beginning to have a love for my sport. The people in my life were pointing me back to God. I had a strong, small, but really strong faith community who did Bible study with me weekly. I got plugged in with a church, and just how much my faith had grown that year. I was like, okay, like, it's about you, God. It's about Jesus. It's about what he did for us on the cross. And so that became my mindset. But everything else in my life got better too. So like, I was doing well in school, like, relationships were good. Like, I enjoyed where I was living.
Your health was better?
Yeah, my health was better. I honestly, like, he's restored my health completely to the point of it being better now than I was before my concussions, which is like, praise God. Like, I thought in the darkest times of my life that I would just have to be like living the rest of my life managing my symptoms, but never feeling 100% again. Like, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, so praise God for just complete restored health, and just the perspective and the lens that I view life now is wildly different. And it wouldn't have been different if it wasn't for those concussions, and it wasn't for God changing my heart and just showing me what truly is important. And yeah, just the blessings he's put in my life and continues to do. And it's just been such an incredible journey for sure. Yeah. And I'm still growing. Like, it's a daily act of surrender. And it's like, God's work is not done till our sanctification is completed, which is when a new heaven and a new earth are restored.
And you are 25 with all of this experience under your belt. Are you 25 yet?
I turned 25 on June 14th.
Oh, next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, by the time this comes out, you'll be 25. And what throws me about that is I look at you, and part of this like generational healing is kind of my North Star. So I look at the next generation, and there's so much of me that still feels like I still relate. Like, and I look at you and I'm like, I was 25 when I had Lauren. Lauren is 21.
Wow.
And when I look at her, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, no. Like, no. But I was great. I mean, like, for me, for my life, it worked because, but it's such the concept of like what we learn and what we are able to pass on when we have the confidence and the experience and the faith to step out and really be ourselves and like tell our story. It influences so many people. And I think there's something about faith that I really want to get out there, and I'm very curious as to what you think about this, but I think there's an aspect of society right now that feels like there's this shame, right? Like, we're human. We all make mistakes, right? And I feel like people turn away and go like, I don't want to do that Christian thing because I feel this sense of shame. Like, they're telling me I'm doing something wrong. And like, I just feel like that's a really big theme out there right now, or it's something that people humanly really feel. And does anybody ever come to you and have you seen that when you're talking to people or you're giving your testimony, and what's your advice to someone?
That's a great question. Honestly, no one has come to me with that, but I definitely sense it in society. I sense a resistance towards faith, like an almost animosity, thinking, because we are called to leave the ways of the world and choose Christ. And there's no sugarcoating that. So you can choose the world's way or you can choose Christ's way. But for those who choose Christ's way, there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus. And he came to not save the healthy, but to save the sick. So if you're a sinner, like, come with your filthy rags to the Savior who's going to make clean your slate white as snow. Like, when God sees you, he sees the sacrifice of his son, and nothing that we can do could ever earn that, and nothing that we have done will ever repel his love from us. Honestly, like, I'm reading this book called Gentle and Lowly, and the sin that that's in our lives, like, causes God's heart to draw out to us even more, because it's almost, they've made this analogy of having a sick child that's in the hospital room, and the father is hating the disease for the child because he's like, this is my boy, I love him so much, and this disease is affecting him and hurting him and harming him. And so he's drawn out to hate the disease, but to absolutely love his son with unconditional love. So that's how God views us in sin. Like, he's a holy God, he's set apart. Does he love sin? No, he hates sin, but he loves the sinner. Like, he loves you. And so I think that anyone feeling shame, like, that's spiritual warfare. That's a lie from the enemy, because there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus. And for those who put their faith and confess him as Lord and Savior, like, we are made right with God. We are seated in heavenly places with God because of what he's done for us. And that's the truth that I hope will ring true to everyone listening.
Because there's a peace, like you said, the peace that surpasses all understanding is where that comes in. Yeah. So when you decided from Hawaii, then there was another faith journey so you left Hawaii. Yeah,
this was a totally, like, another total God thing, which has been so awesome. And because usually in prayers, like, it's sometimes a quiet knowing or just praying through it and feeling that this is the right way to go. Because in Proverbs it says that man makes their plans, but the Lord establishes their steps, right? And so he's given us the ability to make decisions and use our discernment and our wisdom in doing that. But sometimes God is obvious in where he wants us to go, or in showing us signs to confirm that where we're at is where our decision is where he wants us. And so after I knew that I was going to finish my undergraduate degree at Hawaii and then still have another year of eligibility. And so I talked to my coaches and I said, hey, like, I don't want to start a grad program here, A, because they didn't have a field that I was interested in with programs, and then B, if I were to stay there, I would have to finish the grad program the following year, but still but not have eligibility left. So I wanted to be on mainland because that's where I just felt that like I could finish my degree, and then I could also pursue professional beach volleyball, which has been such a dream of mine. And so I remember praying about, God, like, I want to go wherever you're calling me, and I don't want to go where I think, because obviously SC has such a reputation of being excellent on the court, excellent in the classroom, and so I was like, I don't want this to be a fleshly, worldly decision of, oh, I just want to go there because it sounds the best in the world's eyes. Like, I want to go wherever you're calling me. And I was also deciding between LSU, which is also a great school, and their coach is incredible.
Russell, yes.
Yeah, he is a man of faith, and leads his team with those values, with those morals, and just creates such a culture that is, I would say, God glorifying from an outsider looking in.
Yeah, that's what I've seen from an outsider looking in too.
Like it's
amazing stuff.
It's really amazing.
And then his athletes coming out of there are amazing too.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I remember kind of being torn between those two, and logically I was like, okay, it makes sense to go to LSU because he's a strong Christian man, and I'll continue to grow in my faith and be surrounded by girls who have a lot of the same shared values and whatnot. But then I also was drawn to USC, and I was like, but I feel my heart kind of pulling me towards SC. But I'm like, is that my heart of like worldly passions in the flesh, or is that actually God like calling me to SC? And so I go, God, like, if I'm supposed to go to SC, make it abundantly clear, make it apparent. And the next day, literally the next day, I get a text from my first ever beach volleyball contact, which was at Carolina, and her name is Willa Ma. And we kept in touch throughout the year. She's a believer. We went to church a few times at Carolina, and we were never like really close, but she always like was a good friend to me. And so she just reached out to me out of the blue, and she said, hey, like, how's it going? Like, how's season? And I was like, oh, season's good. Like, how's work? Because she had graduated, and she's like, oh, like, work has been really good, but actually, like, exciting news, like, I'm gonna go back to school in the fall. And I go, oh, like, where are you going to go to school? And she goes, USC. And in my mind right there, I was like, okay, even if it's USC, South Carolina, like, I'm still going to USC. Like, that is a sign. And because I was like, in my mind, I was like, no one up and moves from the East Coast to the West Coast. Right. And I mean,
so you thought she's going to the other
USC. So I was like, she's
yeah.
going to South Carolina. So I'm like, are you talking USC South Carolina or USC Southern California? And she goes, USC Southern California. And in my mind, I was like, okay, God, like, I'm going there. And anyways, she's getting her PhD in biokinesiology, and so she was entering at the same exact time. She's my roommate now, along with Haley Harward, and she has just been one of my best friends that I've ever had in my life, and probably will ever have. And like, she's helped me grow spiritually, like, just has been such a great roommate in so many ways, and just like to see like God continue to reaffirm like that this was the right decision, and like I have no doubt in my mind like this is the path that God has for me. And just and then also like Willa's, she does her research, so we got plugged in with like a good Bible-based church during COVID, and now we've been like pretty involved with our church, with our small group, with our young adults group. I do children's when I have free weekends, do the 3rd grade, and just like the importance of service and being plugged in with a body has been such a cool part of being out here, for sure. So that was my next step of USC. Yeah,
and I'm sure Dane was really excited when you made that decision.
Yeah, I don't know. Because
you had
Anna
quite...
or Dane?
What?
Was that Anna or Dane?
Dane, yeah. His first head coaching area.
Okay, yeah, right when he came in is when you started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you've had...
Just winners, yeah.
Yeah, so that like brings us back to where you are. You've had 2 national championships at USC,
mm-hmm.
And then you just graduated, right?
So I graduated from the first master's program that I started in the fall, and then I started a new one this spring, and that doesn't end till next May.
Okay, so tell
Yeah.
me, undergraduate degree is in communications.
Communications,
Um,
entrepreneurship and innovation, and then this is communication management.
okay, very
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
Amazing, because something that's been occurring to me a lot in the world lately as we navigate, I mean, health and wellness and picking up the phone and post-COVID, and the thing I've been thinking about and writing about is, like, there are places where there are literally no people. You call and you're like, I have to log in, I have to schedule the appointment online, I go there, I check in on a machine, I'm like, I haven't seen a person,
Yeah.
and I keep thinking about, like, how do we get these stories out? How do we communicate? Because no matter how far we get in AI and innovation and all this, like, the human connection, that's what I love
Yeah,
about communication.
absolutely.
Right. And that concept of being an entrepreneur and learning, like, how do we use all of this technology to spread great stories and things that can connect people and help people learn and be better, which is the slogan of, my vision and telling these media-based stories, because I think there's something in the way society is so connected now that what's out there needs to be positive, and not like sugary positive, but like grounded in wisdom and strength and resilience to come through these stories. And so as I've followed your story, like, it's really powerful to see how your faith's come through it and how you're using it in the world. And to watch you play, I mean, I started with volleyball because it's just a passion. Like, I love to watch people do what they love to do, but the story behind it is really always what I'm more about.
Yeah.
So,
wow. That's so cool.
so I really trying to think of where I even want to go from here, because it wraps up.
Can I show a highlight reel?
Sure.
High school.
Oh yeah, Jason
High
Jason
school.
always. Oh, high school volleyball.
Yeah,
You gotta
let's
love
do
that.
Man. Let's just show a little bit of it. I saw some stuff. Let's just say I saw some stuff. It's over there. You can look over there.
Oh my gosh,
is what
this
you
is
actually-
embarrassing.
No.
Whatever it takes to make you blush. I like that. Inside set and just you scan cross and then you see split and then you hammer through the split with a tank.
It's so funny.
You know, I watched this video 8 times while you guys were
Chatting.
While you guys were doing this, and I was just trying to appreciate, like, her approach and, like, first of all the pivot foot, which allows you to see cross, and then scan the courts cross and seam split seam line, stuff like that. I really I love it. Look at that. This is before, this is before you actually knew how to play, right? You just, I mean, with respect to your high school career, I think this is fantastic, Julia.
Thank you.
That's where you started.
I'll stop there. You blush
Well,
enough.
because honestly, I
Put
didn't.
the camera on Wendy.
I know. Well, no, I get it, and it's so funny because I went back to Loyola where my son played, and he plays at Stanford now. And I had watched a whole season of Stanford volleyball this year, and then I went back to watch a high school game because his senior season was done. It was COVID, like, that was his senior year, so I never got to see, like, the last high school game. And when they were in CIF, I went back and watched this past couple weeks ago or whatever, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, each level, like, the difference. And when you're watching it, you're like, oh my gosh, they're so good, they work so hard, I love watching them. And then you go up to the next level and you're like, you forget. And then I went back and I'm like, the difference. So when you say you're embarrassed, it's like, that's where you are at that point. And then my favorite point is USC, like the Sammy serve on the line. I mean,
yeah.
and I know
Awesome.
that's been watched a million times, but I probably watched it a million times, and I was like, that serve was sick, and like,
it was like a boomerang of
and it looked like it was going out. It was like, so, I mean, you have all these amazing experiences under your belt, and you're gonna have a million more, but, like, your calm and your groundedness, and, like, it's like you can feel it, because I'm kind of an energy person too, and it's like,
that's that Christian stuff. Dude.
Yeah.
That's
And-
that emote. Sorry, that's that you know me. Kind of like that Lutheran, we're Christians by our love type stuff.
yeah.
It shows. This girl's got angels, dude. She got angels, like 4 of them. I see them right now.
So I'm really excited to watch you this season, and you're playing with Gina Urango, you said, and so how long you guys been practicing?
So I did a few practices with Gina, I believe, in the fall, and then we were just talking about, like, partnerships, and then in the spring, while still practicing with SC, I would practice with her like once a week in the mornings.
Okay.
And then we kind of decided halfway through season, I was like, yeah, I'd love to play with you. And we haven't played yet, but it's been really fun in practice, and we just balance each other really well, I would say. And she obviously has so much experience.
Yeah.
And just, with like sponsorships, and I've just looked to her as like a mentor, like experiences obviously on volleyball.
Because that's a whole transition in itself, right? Off the court, going from college to pro. So, so when's the first time we get to see you guys play?
We're playing this weekend in Michigan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you have points?
Do I have points?
Do you have draw points?
I don't have main draw points, but I think I have like a few points.
Yeah, you gotta have some.
If you're playing with Gina, she has enough for both of you.
Oh, she has a lot of points.
Yeah. No, because
I bring her down for sure.
Muskegon is an actual qualifier for that too.
So what? That's qualifying
for Hermosa.
For Hermosa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I can't wait for that weekend. Okay, well, go get them because I want to watch you play in Hermosa. I won't be in Michigan, but but we met last year in New Orleans too, and I loved meeting your mom, and I've stayed in touch with her on Facebook. And so the other thing I would say is it's really cool, like this generational aspect of storytelling. I always love meeting the parents, and that's my favorite job that I have. There's just nothing better. So I see that with you and your mom, and that relationship that you have, and it's really, really cool. So I hope I see them in Hermosa too.
Yeah, they'll probably be here.
Okay, cool. Well,
they'll be in Michigan.
I love it. It's so great. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and I think there are probably way more conversations to come, but this was awesome, and I thank you for sharing your story because it's really, really powerful. So my question that I usually end with is if there were one piece of advice that you could give to a younger player today, what would that be?
Yeah, my piece of advice, I would say, in high school, I always dreamed of winning a national championship, and that was kind of just the moment I envisioned bringing me so much fulfillment and happiness. And now I realize that life is so much bigger than any milestone you could achieve, and I almost feel more sorry for people who reach those milestones to realize that they're empty and meaningless if they're not grounded in something bigger than just the achievement. And I would say after winning with SC, I now fully realize that like Christ and his love and the joy that he brings is so much greater than any fleeting moment of success or trophy or something of that nature. But so many people just hold on to that hope of one day accomplishing something, which is great. Like, I think it's really important to have goals and dreams, but knowing that that shouldn't be what's fueling you every single day. Because if you do, like, you're going to wake up one day and realize that it's not what you made it out to be.
Yeah. It's powerful. Yeah. Enjoy. And people say, enjoy the journey. But,
yeah. It's all about the journey for sure.
Yeah.
And then when it's over, you're like, dang, I wish I could go back and still have some more journey left.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we get to keep going. So that's what we're doing. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us for the What I Meant to Say podcast. For more real conversations like this one, come on over to the Be Better community at www.bebetterwithwendyjones.com, a place for athletes and parents to grow and find meaning behind what we do every day so that we can be strong on our own and better together.